The night before her wedding, Emily Parker sat alone in her hotel room, staring at the glowing city lights through the large glass window. The room was quiet, the only sound coming from the faint hum of the air conditioner and the occasional distant car honking below. Normally, Emily would have felt excitement, a bubbling energy about her wedding day, but tonight was different. Her heart felt heavy, caught between the thrill of marrying Michael, the man she loved, and a sudden, inexplicable tension she couldn't shake. There was a restlessness she hadn't expected, a fluttering unease that made her feel both fragile and alert. She sipped her tea slowly, trying to calm the nervous energy in her chest. But the warmth of the cup didn't seem enough. Emily glanced at the small stack of unopened messages on her phone, some from friends wishing her luck, some from her family. But then a new message appeared, one that made her heart skip. It was from Daniel, her old friend from college, the one who had been her closest confidant during her most formative years. Daniel had been a presence in her life that was gentle, comforting, and intense in ways she didn't fully understand until much later. His words were simple but filled with weight. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, but we need to talk. Please, wait." Her hand shook slightly as she set the cup down and reread the message. Daniel hadn't spoken to her in years, not since. They had drifted apart naturally, life pulling them in different directions. Seeing his name flash on her phone now, of all nights, brought a flood of memories, late night talks in dorm rooms, quiet walks in the park, shared laughter that seemed to make the world smaller, safer. She wanted to respond, to ask what he meant, but she hesitated. Her mind spun with questions. Why tonight? What could he possibly want to say now? The sudden knock at the door startled her. Emily's heart jumped, and she quickly set her phone down, frowning. She hadn't ordered room service, nor was she expecting any visitors at this hour. The knock came again, firmer this time, breaking her thoughts entirely. She felt a sudden mixture of caution and curiosity. Carefully, she approached the door and opened it just a crack. Standing there were three men, strangers to her, their posture calm but purposeful. They weren't threatening, yet something about them demanded her attention. "We were sent by someone who cares about you," the tallest one said politely. "He asked us to make sure you were all right." Emily froze. She didn't know what to say. Who would send three men to check on her? Her mind raced. She studied their faces. There was no malice, no intimidation, just a quiet seriousness. For reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a flicker of trust. Slowly, almost instinctively, she stepped aside. "Please, come in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The men entered silently, their presence filling the room with an energy that was both heavy and protective. They didn't sit or speak further. They simply stood, waiting. Emily's mind spun with possibilities, with fear, with curiosity. She glanced at her phone again, and another message from Daniel appeared. "Check your window. Look outside." Her pulse quickened as she stepped toward the balcony. Outside, standing under the soft glow of the city lights, was Daniel. He wasn't rushing, shouting, or showing anger. Simply stood there, familiar yet changed. As if he had stepped out of the past and appeared in her present in the most unexpected way. Her breath caught. Seeing him there after all these years made her chest tighten in a mixture of longing and confusion. Emily stepped closer to the glass, unable to speak at first. Daniel raised a hand slightly, a small wave, acknowledging her without saying a word. Memories cascaded through her mind. She remembered the late-night talks in dorm hallways, the rainy afternoons spent studying together, the shared secrets they had confided in one another. There was an intimacy in their past that had never been romantic in the traditional sense, yet it had been deep and undeniable. And now, standing here on the eve of her wedding, Daniel's presence reminded her of all that she had tucked away feelings. She had thought she had outgrown memories she had tried to leave behind. The three men remained silent behind her, like shadows that existed only to give her the space to confront this moment. Emily didn't fully understand why Daniel had sent them, or why he himself appeared outside her window. but she felt an odd reassurance. He wasn't here to pressure her to interfere. He was here to remind her, perhaps, that she was seen, remembered, and cared for. The mixture of emotions swirled inside her: excitement, guilt, curiosity, nostalgia, and an unspoken tension that clung to her like a second skin. Emily opened the balcony door carefully and stepped outside. The cool night air brushed against her cheeks and scattered the loose strands of her hair. Daniel looked at her with a tenderness that made her chest ache. He spoke softly, carefully, as if weighing every word. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. I couldn't let tomorrow come without talking to you. Never stop caring about you, Emily." Her heart thumped loudly in her chest. She had expected closure, perhaps, or a polite goodbye. But hearing those words now from him was like stepping into a river of memories she hadn't realized were still flowing inside her. "Daniel, I'm getting married tomorrow," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Michael is wonderful. I love him. He's kind, he's patient, he's my future." Daniel nodded, his expression soft, almost wistful. "I know," he said gently. "That's why I didn't come to interfere. I sent them only because I wanted you to know that someone cares, truly cares, about you. That's all." Emily felt her throat tighten. She hadn't realized how lonely she had felt in her excitement. How much she had longed for someone to understand her completely before this next big step. Daniel wasn't here to complicate her life. He was here to honor her feelings, to acknowledge the part of her heart that had always remembered him. The three men remained in the shadows behind her, silent observers of a reunion that was emotional but not intrusive. They did not speak or intervene, merely giving Emily and Daniel the room to navigate a moment that belonged solely to them. Emily's mind raced with questions, with memories, with emotions she had not expected to confront on the night before her wedding. Her eyes filled with tears. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of understanding, of gratitude. She reached out instinctively to touch Daniel's hand lightly, feeling the familiar warmth, the comforting presence that had once made life seem simpler, more connected. "I'll never forget you." "Daniel," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "You've always been a part of me in ways I can't explain." Daniel gave a small, knowing smile. He didn't need to say more. His presence, his words, the very fact that he had come here spoke volumes. Slowly, he stepped back into the shadows of the city night, leaving her with a heart full of emotions, a mixture of sorrow and relief, longing and closure. Emily stepped back into the room, shutting the balcony door gently. The three men, still silent, made their way to the door and left without a word. Leaving her alone with the quiet hum of the hotel and the distant city lights, she felt strangely lighter, as if a weight she hadn't realized she carried had been lifted. She had confronted a piece of her past, had acknowledged a bond that had never fully ended, and now she could face tomorrow with clarity. With her heart more open and with a newfound appreciation for love in its many forms, the night stretched on, and Emily finally sat back in her chair, sipping the now cold tea. She allowed herself to feel every emotion: the nostalgia, the warmth, the quiet ache of parting, and the anticipation of the future. She knew tomorrow would be a day of joy, of celebration. But tonight had reminded her that love is never simple, never one-dimensional. Sometimes it comes to us in many forms, in unexpected visits, in quiet gestures, in shadows of the past that reappear just when we need to remember what we are capable of feeling. Emily leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting the night wrap around her like a protective blanket. She knew she was ready to step into her wedding day, ready to embrace her future with Michael, yet also grateful for the past that had shaped her so deeply. And for the first time that night, she allowed herself to truly breathe, feeling the gentle mix of emotions that made her human, that made her heart alive, that prepared her for the next chapter of her life. Emily stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool night air brush against her face. The city below glittered like scattered diamonds, but all she could see was Daniel. He stood there quietly, hands in his pockets, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. It had been years since she had seen him, yet the familiarity in his eyes made her feel like no time had passed at all. Every memory of laughter, of whispered secrets, of late-night walks rushed back, overwhelming her senses. Her chest tightened, a mix of anticipation, nervousness, and an ache she had long buried. "Emily," Daniel said softly, almost as if saying her name out loud gave it life again. "I know this isn't easy. I know tomorrow is a big day for you. But I couldn't let the night pass without saying something." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the words stuck. She had thought she had prepared herself for the wedding, for a new life with Michael. Yet, seeing Daniel now made every plan feel fragile. She remembered how he had always understood her in ways no one else did, how he could read her moods without her saying a word. And now, standing on this balcony, he was reminding her of all that she had loved, all that had shaped her before Michael had entered her life. Daniel, I don't know what to say," she whispered finally. "I'm getting married tomorrow. Michael is kind. He's patient. He's my future. I can't do this." Daniel shook his head gently, a soft smile forming on his lips. "I don't expect you to make any decisions tonight. I just needed you to know how I feel, how I've felt all these years. I've never stopped caring about you, Emily. You've always been a part of my heart, even when life pulled us apart." Emily's eyes welled up with tears. She had expected closure, maybe a polite goodbye, but his words stirred emotions she hadn't realized were still alive inside her. She thought about all the moments they had shared, the depth of their friendship, and the quiet bond that had always existed. It had never been about possession or demands. It had always been about understanding, about connection. And now, on the night before her wedding, that connection came alive again. She took a step closer to him, feeling the tension and longing between them. "Daniel, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt Michael. I'm so confused." He reached out but didn't touch her, letting her decide if she wanted to bridge the distance. "I know," he said softly. "I would never ask you to stop your life. I'm not here to take anything from you. I just wanted you to remember that you are loved, truly loved, in ways you might not have felt tonight. I sent them in because I wanted you to feel safe, to know that someone is here for you, even if it's just for a moment. That's all." Emily blinked, overwhelmed. She hadn't expected this, not tonight. She had imagined her wedding eve as quiet, maybe filled with nerves or anticipation, but not with this sudden whirlwind of emotions. She felt tears fall freely now, hot and fast, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of nostalgia, of a heart that had been touched deeply and honestly. She wanted to speak, to tell him that he had mattered, that he had always mattered, but the words seemed inadequate. "I'll never forget you, Daniel," she whispered. "You've always been a part of me in ways I can't explain. You shaped me in ways no one else ever could." Daniel's eyes softened. He nodded, understanding everything without needing her to say more. He had come not to disrupt her life, but to honor the bond they shared, to leave her with something meaningful on the night before a major turning point. "And you've always been a part of me," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "That will never change. No matter where life takes us, I'll remember you, Emily, always." The three men who had been standing quietly in the shadows of her room earlier now left silently. They didn't need to speak or intervene. Their presence had simply given Emily the space to face her emotions. Emily felt a strange mix of sorrow and peace. She had confronted a piece of her past she had buried deep within her heart, and now she could step into tomorrow with clarity. She could embrace Michael, knowing that her past was acknowledged, honored, and released. Emily stood on the balcony, taking in the city lights, the cool air, the quiet stillness. She realized that love is never simple, never linear. It comes in many forms, sometimes as the excitement of a new beginning, sometimes as a quiet connection that endures across time and distance. She had loved Daniel in a way that had shaped her. And now she was ready to love Michael in a way that would shape her future. "Thank you." Daniel, she said softly, almost to herself. Thank you for reminding me, for being part of my life even tonight. Daniel stepped back, fading slightly into the shadows. There was no dramatic gesture, no lingering embrace. It was a quiet, mutual understanding that their moment had passed, that their connection would remain in memory and heart, but that life had different paths now. He gave a small smile, one filled with warmth, affection, and acceptance. Before turning and walking away into the night, Emily closed the balcony door gently, leaning against it. The three men had already left her room earlier, leaving her in the calm hum of the hotel and the quiet of the city. She sat on the edge of the bed, letting herself breathe, letting herself feel every emotion without judgment. The whirlwind of memories, longing, and love that Daniel had stirred in her heart was powerful, but it was also comforting. She felt lighter, as if carrying this acknowledgement of the past gave her permission to fully embrace her future. She thought about Michael, about tomorrow, about the life they would build together. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love he had shown her, for the patience and kindness that had drawn her to him. But she also felt gratitude for Daniel, for the reminder that love comes in many forms, that connections can endure even when circumstances change, and that the heart is capable of holding multiple layers of affection and remembrance. The night passed slowly, filled with a mixture of reflection and anticipation. Emily allowed herself to think of Daniel, to remember the bond they had shared, and to let it be a part of her story without diminishing the love she had for Michael. She realized that life's emotional richness comes not from avoiding complex feelings, but from embracing them fully, understanding them, and allowing them to inform her choices. She stood by the window again, looking out at the city one last time before sleep. The lights twinkled, the streets were calm, and the night held a quiet promise. She felt a sense of completion, a sense of having faced her heart honestly. She was ready for tomorrow, ready to step into her wedding with Michael, but also carrying the memory of Daniel with grace, acceptance, and love. As she lay down to rest, Emily closed her eyes, letting the emotions of the night wash over her. She felt a peaceful kind of ache, the kind that comes from recognizing the depth of human connection and the beauty of love in its many forms. She understood that life would continue to unfold in unexpected ways, that love sometimes appears in moments we do not anticipate, and that letting go does not mean forgetting, it means appreciating. Emily drifted to sleep with a heart full of reflection, gratitude, and hope. She knew that tomorrow would bring joy, excitement, and a new chapter with Michael. But tonight had given her something equally important, a gentle reminder of her past, a quiet acknowledgement of enduring bonds, and a renewed sense of what it meant to love and be loved. The city slept, but Emily's heart was awake, tender, and alive. The night had been unexpected, emotional, and transformative. She understood that life's most powerful moments often come quietly, in gestures that are unspoken, in connections that endure across time, and in the courage to face one's own heart honestly. Tomorrow, she would marry Michael. But tonight, she had met her past, acknowledged it, and let it become a part of her story in a way that was full of grace, love, and emotional depth. And with that realization, Emily finally let herself rest, ready to embrace the next day with clarity, hope, and a heart that had truly been seen.